Hi everybody and welcome to class. If you haven't joined me on Zoom, please do come over to repairmasterclass.com, scroll down on the home page to where you see join me live and get the link so you can be here with me live to ask any questions that you've got. So what we're going to do today is we're going to go through a question, and this is one that we get far too often, and I'm sure you guys as teachers also deal with this question. So I kind of wanted to go after this one a little bit today, and that is, what do I do with this thing? So these ISOs, there's a really good operator in the music business who sent out a very, very famous letter now that said, beware of the ISO, the instrument-shaped object. And it was a passionately well-written letter and was not incorrect, except he made two mistakes. He did not say, in my opinion, and he named name brands. And one of those name brands sued him to the tune of $16.4 million, and they won. It was an open and shut slander case. It really damaged his business quite a lot. But he wasn't wrong. He was worried about students trying to succeed on things that look like an instrument but aren't actually an instrument. So I want to get into some of the nitty-gritty on that today and talk about, this one came into the repair one of my repair facilities that is the drop-off pickup site for me. And they said, hey, can you fix the bridge on this for me? So I'm trying to decide, can I or should I fix the bridge? Let's go dive into some of the details and find out. So one of the things that happens on these instruments is, are they actually an instrument? They look like a violin, they're shaped like a violin, they've got all of the pieces of a violin, but are they actually a violin? So I want to get into some of the details on that. What I want to do to start off with is I want to look at this fingerboard. It looks black, and to most people's eyes, it looks like a normal fingerboard. But I want to get in underneath this section right here. So I'm going to show you right here where this is at, and then I'm going to get into this detail. And this is tough to see. I want you to look in underneath this fingerboard with me. I know that this comes into most focus. I want you to see right back here. If you look underneath that fingerboard, do you see how that's white? This out here is black, but in underneath there is white. That's a problem. What that tells us is that is not an ebony fingerboard. So one of the ways you can tell is grab a violin, look in up underneath that fingerboard, and see if you can see white underneath there. If it is, it's more than likely a maple or spruce fingerboard, probably maple. And that means that as you are fingering the instrument, as you're putting your fingers down on the instrument, you're going to cut frets basically into your instrument, but they're going to make your instrument completely out of tune. It also means that all of the sound quality, so from day one, the sound quality is going to get soaked up by that really soft wood instead of being reflected off the way a real fingerboard does that's actually ebony and put on there right. So first off, the fingerboard itself is not actually ebony. The other thing that happens is the nut and pegs are also supposed to be ebony because they take a lot of pressure. The strings being strung over top of them, cutting through the nut, pulling on the pegs, it makes so much pressure. But if you look at this, if we simply loosen some of these strings and slide the string out of the way, do you see down inside of here how this is also white and not black? That also tells us that it is not ebony and is going to fall apart on the student. So when we hand this instrument to them and say, play loud, play full, play with a good solid sound, they can't. The instrument itself is actually sucking up that sound from them. The other thing that happens then is on the pegs. So if you take a peg and back it out, maybe even move a string, if I can get a hold of this, move a string clear out of the way and pull it out to where you can see the peg hole. So we take that string out, if we look inside of that hole, see if I can get this in focus for everybody. If we look inside this hole right here where the string goes through, that also is white. The more of these that you end up looking at, the more you're going to be able to look at the peg and go, oh, that's not ebony at all. You can tell from the wood grain itself that that's not what we want. So right now what we've got is an instrument that has a fingerboard, nut, pegs, and saddle down here also that are not ebony. So they're not the materials that we want. So what other things aren't what we want? So if we look at the top, back, and sides of these instruments, they are covered in paint, right? So, and they're black or blue or purple or green or whatever you want. They're not that fantastic. When we take an actual top, an actual top, and this one is just one that I've chopped up so I can use for demonstrations, we can actually see inside of this top even though this is a very poor quality student top, you can still see grain pattern inside of this wood. When we flip the top over here, you can still see, even through the varnish, if I can get the glistening light off of it, you can still see the grain patterns go through it. And what we're looking for is really tight grain pattern in here, and the further out that we get, that grain pattern opens up. That's just one of those features that we want to see in every violin, including student level violins. As makers, we like wood. We like this material. We're really choosy on what we're making the instruments out of. And so if you cover it with paint, are you at all concerned about the material that we're working with? Not at all. So it has the tendency to not even be the spruce top, maple back and sides, or if it just so happens to be spruce and maple, it's usually of a very, very low quality, full of knots and grain patterns that are all weavy and moving around. It's just not material that's going to help your students succeed and help them produce good sound. Let's go look at the other thing. So this one here came in for a bridge. So I want to show you, let's go here. I want to show you some of the things that are on this bridge. All in all, the bridge is actually at pretty good height. It's not clean. If you look at this bridge here, it's actually not very clean. You see those black lines and on top of that? That's not shadow lines that you're seeing right now. That is actually just grit and grime that's put down and through there. And the reason that that's happening is the bridge is so textured. Here, let's just show you that. Do you see this bridge? This bridge just came off this instrument. It has all of these really gritty lines down through it where I have no idea what's touched it. But the reason all of that's grabbing a hold of the bridge is because this bridge is so textured. It has so much roughness of grain pattern into it. The other thing that I wanted to see on the back or tailpiece side of the instrument is really consistent grain pattern and striping going through the bridge this way. This thing has none of that. This has almost no, actually has vertical striping into it instead of horizontal. The other thing that happens when we put this on, if we can see it right in here, do you see how that foot lifts up off the top? You can see it also on this foot here, how this corner here lifts up off the top. You see that dark shadow underneath there? That's because this bridge is not actually fit to this top. In order to save money, what they do is they carve bridges by the hundreds and simply set them up on the instrument. They're not worried about, is this bridge carved to this particular top. They also don't take in mind that the arch of the top, so this curvature of the top, when we put strings on it and put a bridge on it, it's actually going to come from this curvature and it's going to flatten out just a little bit simply because we've put pressure down on top of it. It's going to squish the instrument. And because we've got that pressure, guess what? That curve's different now and we've actually got to carve the feet to that. So what they're doing in order to hit the price points that they're doing is one of two things. Either the manufacturer has come up with a manufacturing technique to produce an instrument for 1/8 the price of everybody else, or they've put in inferior quality of materials and craftsmanship. Now, as a repair tech, what I have found over the years is it's the latter. They put in inferior quality materials and craftsmanship in order to hit that price point. And then what we do is we give that instrument to a student and we say, hey, this is a brand new, black, shiny, speckly instrument. You can go be successful on this. And they can't. They don't sound good. They can't play in tune. The instrument starts falling apart on them from day one. There's no transfer of sound through the instrument. And so as a teacher, when you say, give me more sound, do these technique things to give me more sound, and none of that has results because the instrument simply isn't capable of doing it, we're not motivating the student. The student actually becomes demotivated. So we can teach to their heart, we can teach to their spirit, and we can create connections with them, but if their instruments don't work, none of that matters in this environment. They're not going to learn what you need them to learn in order to have all those extra stuff. So if their instrument doesn't work, sorry guys, the rest of the stuff doesn't matter. So am I going to fix this bridge? No, I'm not. I'm going to care for the student enough to tell them you're wasting your money with me. If I even attempted to put a repair in on this instrument and carve a good bridge for this, it's throwing pearls before swine. It just doesn't work. It's not the right thing to do. So from an ethical standpoint and from my honest interest in this student, I'm going to tell this customer, you know, there's better ways to spend your money. So hopefully this makes a little bit of sense for people as to why we don't want to work on this and what's really better for the student. If you have any questions, by all means, email me. All my contact information is at repairmasterclass.com, or just leave comments here in the YouTube video. What we're going to do right now is we're going to say goodbye to all the YouTubers and go to the questions that are pouring in right now on Zoom. So if you guys want to join me for these live Zoom meetings, go to repairmasterclass.com, scroll down on the homepage, and find the Join Me Every Tuesday, and just get the link to this so you can be here asking questions with me every single week. So right now, folks, we'll see you next week.